Hey, what's up? Welcome back, Sabscribers. It's your girl Sab here again with another episode of Suffering in Silence. And then we got
xoxo
back again. So today we have a few topics that I feel like we didn't really get to touch on the last episode. I feel like after we finished recording, the only reason I even thought to bring you back so soon was like brought up some topics that I felt like would be pretty cool to talk about with you. And it seemed like you were in a place where you wanted to share, so I was like, that's perfect. I wrote down some things, and should we get right into the, I guess what they call the meat and potatoes? Alright, so last time we were talking about how something that's obviously stands out about my podcast is we talk about domestic violence and just how it affects us, and not necessarily just our personal experiences in relationships, but just in general, even with growing up with it around us. And just I always want to hear a male's perspective of it, because obviously I will never know what that's going to be like, and I don't know, maybe for some odd reason I might feel like it will help me understand why I went through the situation that I went through with my ex. But at the same time, obviously I will never reach out to him and ask him, why were you so abusive? Because he's clearly never going to be in a place where he will take accountability for his part in that whole thing. And that's not to laugh at him in any way. But I always like to hear guys out, because you guys might have different insight that changes my perspective on things.
Okay.
And obviously I also feel like men don't really, there's obviously still a stigma in some way that men don't get abused. So I guess however you want to start, if you want to start with some of your experiences personally, or if you've experienced things like just witnessing things growing up.
Okay.
How has DV affected you, and how you feel like it has essentially added to who you've become as a person?
Well, definitely, it's a learned thing. It's not like you were born a fucking domestic abuser or something. I mean, so you learn these habits and shit. And I remember growing up, being in school, we talk about how we grew up with our friends and shit, and we laugh about it, getting whoopings and shit like that, or when we grow up, I want a wife that does this and that. That's how I grew up, being in school, talking to the friends. We didn't really know, but we're talking about shit that we're going through at home, on some domestic violence shit, and we're at school talking about what we want in a wife, what we would do at home or whatever, and we're talking about some abusive shit. So it's a learned thing, and I remember growing up laughing about it, because that's some shit that we see in cartoons. You know what I mean? Hey Arnold is a very deep cartoon where you're seeing animated domestic violence in there. If you ever see episodes of Helga Pataki, you know what I mean? Her household, that is domestic violence all day. And growing up, I didn't know, you know what I mean? It's a cartoon, I'm laughing about it, this and that. But fast forwarding to now who I am and shit, these are things that we gotta really sit back and talk about and be like, all right, this is some shit that we learned, and it's normalized now. But or we normalized it ourselves, but now it's like we gotta really put a microscope on it and process this shit,
right?
Dissect it and be like, all right, how can we move forward and do better, and not really move forward and look back and bullshit all the time. And I know, going through experiences with my mom and dad as a kid, seeing shit like that, I'm out the room. I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna have to stay here. I'm gonna go to my room, shut my door, turn on TV or whatever, play with my toys or shit. But that's my experience. So I'm seeing this shit, I'm learning this shit, and then you just walk away.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know how you experienced DV growing up, if you have. But that's essentially my experience with it growing up. I would see it, you know what I mean, but I wouldn't dip out the room. Or if it came down to the crime doesn't fit the punishment, if it came down to a situation like that where I'm being yelled at and it turns into a whooping over spilled milk, you know what I mean, there's something behind that whooping that really fuels it. And it ain't because I spilled milk. There's something else that you're really angry about. Now you're taking it out on me, type shit. So I don't know how you've experienced it, but that was my experience.
I feel like for me, my experience was it was so difficult, because it's like literally my parents stayed together my entire life until my dad passed away. So it affected me in ways of I obviously knew that was wrong. The things that were happening in their relationship, I knew that was wrong, but I never knew when would be the right time to walk away from a relationship as toxic as it could get. And I'm like, for me to see my parents always argue and always fight, My dad wasn't always super physical with my mom once I was born, but I know that from her stories and just the things that my sisters tell me and how he was a lot more physically abusive to her, even because my parents weren't even together long before they had me, because I'm a fucking love child. And so I think also that was transition between his previous marriage and his relationship with my mom. And I know his previous marriage was very physically abusive and toxic. It wasn't just him being the aggressor, it was literally the both of them going at each other
back and forth.
And my mom she's more of the way she typically responds is she doesn't typically fight back. She'll fight back with her words sometimes, but she's not necessarily gonna. I guess the best way I can imagine it is when I look at my mom and how she reacted in those situations that I've seen, she would just shut down, almost like a child. And it probably triggers something for her as a child seeing domestic violence as well. And she essentially just shuts down and just completely dissociates from the situation. And I started to learn that that's how I would respond in domestic violence situations. And sometimes I would fight back with my words, but he sometimes got me to the point where I was fighting back, even physically. I'll admit that I've kicked and punched holes in the walls and shit like that because he's pissed me off. I wouldn't necessarily do it when he's there, because we would basically argue a lot when he's leaving to go out. And I'd be super pissed, and I would just punch the wall or kick the wall or something. And I know that was extremely toxic of me, but that part of me started happening more towards the end of the relationship when I was just really getting to my breaking point. And that's when I started to realize I really have to get out of this situation because I'm changing who I am. I'm becoming physically aggressive. And that whole relationship just it was changing me in a lot of ways aggressively. I was getting physically aggressive with other people because of the gaslighting that he would do to me and manipulate me to believe that certain women or something were trying to threaten our relationship. And I would get physical with those women because I would think that's the way I need to defend myself, because he would just put me to that point, right? And I'm not saying I don't take responsibility for my actions. It's just he brought a physical side of me out that I never wanted to unleash, because I've seen the way my dad is. I see how angry my dad gets, and literally when he's upset, he just sees red and he starts throwing shit. He starts cussing at everyone in his path. Is you're going fucking down. And so for me, I've seen that side of me in the past. Growing up, I've noticed those patterns. And so I went through really, I guess my siblings would consider an emo phase growing up very early on. And I literally just numbed myself. And that was the only way I could even feel like I was normal. Because if I started to feel things, then I would feel wrong for feeling things, for feeling angry, for feeling upset, for feeling whatever. So it was just easier to just numb it all, because I saw so much of my dad in me. And a lot of it also has to do with how my mom would portray my dad. And obviously I see his toxic tendencies and his abusive ways, and I don't discredit that. But my mom she never gave me the chance to perceive him in my own way as well. So it's she would just relate so much of my negative characteristics to my dad. So it made me honestly resent my dad for most of my life. And our relationship was always super rocky once I got to an older adolescent age. And obviously I always talk about how I wish I could take those years back, because I wish I would have just kept a good relationship with him. And I wish I had that discernment to just be that's your experience with him. I need to have my own experiences with him as well as my dad. But it's hard because you're a kid. You don't know what's going on. You're just... The only person I felt like I could mostly trust was my mom. And if her opinion says he's not a good person, then I'm going to run with that. And it gets really complicated, I guess. But I feel like when I see the situations happening with my parents, I want to walk away, but a part of me also would want to stay there and try to diffuse the situation. I always want to jump in and be the problem solver, and I always want to be there because I always felt like me being present for those situations would protect my mom from getting hit. Because my dad would, I would always think, my dad would never do that in front of me. He would never want me to see that. And I'm if I leave my mom alone with him, I don't know what could happen. And it didn't always help. I've seen my dad smack her before in front of me, so I'm like, so my presence doesn't really make a difference. It got to a point where like, you just don't know, like, as a kid, you don't know that you can't control what other people do, but you want to do your best to protect everyone in the situation.
Definitely.
So I didn't always walk away, and I always tried to stay and protect, and I feel like I carried that into my adulthood as well.
Okay.
I'm always like trying to problem solve situations, and when I see a project in someone, I'm always like, oh my god, I'm so ready and willing to help you and fix these things, without realizing that that's not healthy of me to do.
Definitely. No, I was definitely a mama's boy, so I would stay for my mom here and there, but as I got older, and because my mom and dad divorced when I was 12, and as I got older, my mom was just like, no, you just go to your room, just go. He would push me away and shit, just, you don't gotta stay here and watch all this. So when I was younger, you know what I mean, I'm like 5 years old, trying to be Superman and shit, you know what I mean? As a kid, I would stay, but as I got older, my mom would just push me to the side. And she got smarter as far as how to deal with the situation, you know what I mean? Because she would stay, and that's where I felt like I learned that dependency from, because I would see my mom really stay and try to make this shit work.
Right.
But as she got older, you know what I mean, towards when I was 11, she was really on it. I don't know what switched for her, but she just all of a sudden was just going to work more, picking up more hours. She wanted to like fuck out and save money, get the fuck out. She was really on it, just cooking for us and just like doing what she had to do. But at the end of the day, my pops was just like, you gotta do all that, because I just keep the house. I'll move out. Keep the house, I'll move out. You don't gotta do all that. You're doing all this when you can just communicate with me. So that I'm noticing and seeing all this growing up, but I'm like, these two individuals are just like back and forth. They don't care. My mom ain't doing anything wrong by doing that, but instead of what's the MO, you know what I mean? Is it petty or is it for the benefit of all of us? You know what I mean? You can just communicate that with my pops. My pops was just already gonna give you the house and leave out. You know what I mean? So there was some shit like that where I picked up growing up, where I'm just like, in my relationships, I'm trying to bring more respect and communication in it, because that's where a lot of these little arguments and DV shits happen, from lack of respect and lack of listening. And because honesty, whether you're honest or not, the other person's going to receive it however.
Right.
If there's respect, it's going to be a positive outcome, I feel like, in my opinion. So I feel like it all comes down to respect. And growing up, it was really not much respect between my mom and dad.
Right.
It was a lot of pettiness, a lot of back and forthness. And then, like I said, toward the end of the relationship, my dad, just keep the house. I'm going to move with my grandpa. His pops, build himself up and get back out here again. When that's what happened, mom kept the house. We were living with her. It was not the end of DV, you know what I mean?
Right.
Experiencing that, because now we're going back and forth with like kids shit. Would you rather live with? And what you experienced, my mom would, every negative behavior I've had, she would just relate that to my pops, just like your dad, this and that. I grew up to resent my dad and shit in certain ways. Having kids, it's kind of fucking difficult to not do that, but you have to learn. If you experience that, I wouldn't want that for the mother of my kids.
Right.
I'm not gonna be like, oh, you got that from your mom's. Because fuck, damn, that's kind of some psychological warfare you got going on here and there.
It is.
You got kids.
Do you have a good relationship with your parents?
Not really with my pops. It's more, we're cool, but not really. We're gonna sit down and have a beer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're alright, but we're not gonna go out and hang and shit, which sucks, because I definitely want to go out with my pops. I definitely want to have a beer with them. It kills me that you know what I mean? I work in food service, you know what I mean? I see father and son all the time, and that shit sucks. It sucks, because it's just like, if I go ahead and be like, hey, let's force this meet up and be cool, am I gonna enable your behavior?
Right.
Or are you gonna be like, hey, let me change how I treat other people?
Right.
So I'm not gonna push him away. He's getting older, we're not getting younger. I wanna have that relationship with my pops. My moms, we're definitely good. We're definitely better.
Have your kids met like your dad?
Definitely.
I wish I could be like, oh my god, like, y'all should cherish your father while he's around, because I know how it is to not have a dad because he's passed. And it's like, I could say that cliche ass shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to me, that's unrealistic, because I know it is not easy to work on those relationships when there's so much resentment in between, and it's just super complicated. And that's why when people say things, because like I have these conversations with my sisters sometimes, because all my siblings have different, they're all my half siblings.
Okay.
Like my parents were previously married before they had me, so I don't share any full-blooded siblings. So I talk to my sisters about like how they recently reconnected with their dad after essentially they haven't seen their dad or spoken to their dad in over 20 years. Okay. Ever since like, my mom left him. So I don't know how to tell them. I don't even know how to navigate the situation and be like, hey, like, you should repair your relationship with your dad because he's here. Because like I can only understand so much, because it's like there's obviously huge disconnects between you and your father, because y'all haven't seen each other in like 2 decades. He has never been a father to you, and I will never know how that feels. But at the same time, I know how it feels to not have a dad at all, and I can't turn back the hands of time and be like, hey, I'm gonna go fix my relationship with my dad. But like, I wish I would have just met him where he was. Because I used to hate myself because I didn't realize, I know everyone says this shit, but I didn't realize how much like my dad still loved me until he was diagnosed with stage 4 and we had a conversation. It wasn't even a long conversation, it was literally a quick exchange of words in the hallway as I'm leaving, and I'll never forget him saying it to me in Hmong. And like, sometimes when you hear it in native language, it hits so hard. Oh, that shit hit me right in the gut and I couldn't stop crying. He's like, baby girl, why would you quit your job? He's like, you don't have to quit your job to take care of me. He's like, I'm your dad. I'm supposed to be the one taking care of you. And like, it literally hit me in my gut so hard. And I was like, oh, fuck, damn.
Nice.
I was like, damn. I will never unhear those words in my mind. And like, those types of moments make me think, like, y'all need to cherish the time you have with your parents. But then I'm also like, I get it. Sometimes you're just so hurt and you're so clouded by your own hurt that like, it's hard to make those relationships work. And I know like it sounds like in our situation, we aren't just carrying our own hurt, but we're also carrying the hurt of our moms. And our mom's pain has really just spilled over to us. And it's not like I don't want to ride or die for my mom, but it's also like I should have had the fair opportunity to like, form my opinion of my dad myself. And I hate that like the next generation for my family, it's still like broken cycles. It's still the same thing, and a lot of broken families and a lot of shit talking each other. I don't like to speak on it because it's not like my situation, because it's my sister's situation. But I used to always play like a really huge role in my nephews and nieces' lives. Right. To the point where like, I'm stuck with this fucking house because my parents, I wanted to help my mom take care of my nephews and nieces because she has custody of them. But now they're over 18 and they're off on their own. But I got put in this situation because I felt like I needed to step in. Okay. But like, I'm always there for like, all of my sisters and their kids because I know their relationships with the father of their kid, the fathers of their kids aren't the best. And like, my own experience having like, conflict between my parents, I always try to encourage my sisters. I don't know how it is to be a mom. I will never know that feeling until I have my own kids. But all I can say is I don't think it's right for you to shit on their dad in front of them. As awful as he is, and I understand the pain that you have behind the way shit was with y'all relationship, but it's just never gonna be okay to shit on him because they're gonna hear that, and you should allow them the opportunity to form their own opinion of him. And they're gonna learn that soon enough. I don't want you to taint their perception of who he is and how he treats them. Right. And they might get hurt in the situation, but that's something that you gotta let happen because that's their dad. And we still go through these situations because my sister and I, like, we've always had like a rocky relationship, but like, we're much better now. We worked through it. Some years back, my sister, it's been a little over 4 years, my sister had a stroke. She was like in her early 30s. Oh. And it changed her whole fucking life. Literally changed her whole fucking life. She's never been the same since then. And when it initially happened, I have the flexibility to work from home, so I would be there to help her. I would pick her son up and take him to school, and whatever I could do, I would try to help. Okay. Her kids were living with their dad at the time, full time, because it was also around COVID. Okay. And they just had more flexibility in how they had a work-life balance, and they could keep the kids at home with them while they did schoolwork and their Zooms and all that stuff. So after my sister had this stroke, it just changed her whole life. And ever since then, she hasn't been able to manage her kids on her own because of high blood pressure and just a lot of health and mental things that could trigger her because she's 5 young kids. You know what I mean? And for one person to handle that alone is kind of intense.
Definitely.
And to say the least. And back with their dad, he has a wife and they have 2 adults that can co-parent together. Mm-hmm. And I try to be very cordial with his wife, considering everything that happened with their situation. And I don't want to speak too much on her because I'll always give her credit for stepping up as a stepmom and being a great stepmom to them. But personal shit, I put my personal shit aside. She can talk all her shit she wants. You know what I mean? I've let her say some disrespectful shit about my sister. And I'm like, but at the end of the day, you deserve the credit that you get for taking care of the kids full time. And nobody's taking that away from you. But like, you also aren't seeing perspective of like, what my sister's going through and how she battles through her health issues. Mm. And they just don't try to see it eye to eye and like try to manage it in front of the kids.
Right.
But when the kids come over, they're like, talking to me, they're telling me how she tries to talk shit about me, how she makes literally TikToks to shit on me, and I'm like, ma'am,
jeez,
I don't even talk about you. And I'm like, if you actually listen to my podcast, because you're nosy enough to follow me on TikTok, you're nosy enough to add me on Snapchat, you're nosy enough to check all my socials, then you would listen to my podcast and understand that my podcast would actually help you in the situation that you're actually in. And I'm not even going to air out the shit that you're going through because that would be fucked up of me.
Definitely.
But just understand, I'm doing something that actually could benefit you and what you're going through, but you don't want to hear me out because you can't see past whatever hatred you have for me when I've done nothing to you.
Right.
Even when my family shits on you, I still sit there and I sat there and defended you and said, hey, y'all don't understand what she's probably going through with having to raise 8 kids by herself. You know what I mean? And I'm like, she's also probably going through stuff with her relationship. We can't judge her for that. Mm. I'm here defending you behind closed doors, and you're out here just trying to shit on me on social media for what reason?
Right.
And I've learned that like, I just have to stay neutral in all of it because what matters is my nephews and nieces are going to see. I barely get to see my nephews and nieces, but when they see me, they're so excited. They're so happy to spend time with me. Why? Because I don't speak negatively on anyone else, Definitely. You know? And it's like my little nephew who's 8 shouldn't have to defend me in front of an adult. That's the fucked up shit that I don't ever want to happen to my kids. And unfortunately, like, carries on to the next generation in my family. But trust me, if I have kids with someone and we're not together, I promise you that would never be a thing. My kids will never hear me speak badly on their father. I'm just not that type of person. Because I know how badly that affected me growing up. And my parents stayed together. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know how it is, but...
That was something that I had to go through with my daughter. So, I mean, her mom, that was something that's the first rough experience I've had where I'm like, we got kids involved, a daughter, and now, to what you were saying, I don't think, when there's 2 people really heated at each other, I don't think 2 people are going to really notice, look outside the box and be like, all right, I'm not talking to my daughter directly, bad about her mom, but she's in the other room and she can clearly hear me over the phone. Or vice versa. Her mom would do the same thing too. Mom would do the same thing too, where she may not be talking to our daughter shit about me and shit, but you could definitely hear her and her sister talking. You know, I'm outside or I'm in the other room or whatever the fuck it may be, and it's just like, dude, I know our daughter understands English very fucking well. And it's just like, fuck, man, just get into a weird ass household. It's getting uncomfortable. I'm finding myself leaving out more, staying out more. If I could find a gym to fucking be at, you know what I mean? Or if I could find, during those times, I would go out to eat a lot. I was stressy, but not what you would think. I'm not like just for french fries and shit. I would actually try to eat meals and shit, but I would stay there at the restaurant as long as I could. Or bar with the restaurant. I can just walk over to the bar after I'm done eating. During those times, I would just do a lot of that and stay out more and come back home late to go to bed, wake up, go to work, do it all over again and shit. But my experience with that, when there's kids involved, it's really difficult to navigate personal feelings, but you gotta be disciplined about it, I guess, I would say, because from early on, I would definitely tell my younger self, yo, you was being a little bit more, you was being emotional. You have to not be emotional and think smart. If you're playing chess, you're gonna think about your next move and set yourself up. But then the psychology behind that shit too as well is just like, where's that room for guys to really express and be like, yo, I need to fucking yell, cry, yelp, whatever the fuck it is, whatever, you know what I mean? Let it out. Because we can always convince ourselves, oh, the positive shit that we're doing, that's what we're fueling the negativity from. It's shit that I'm, going to the gym, eating right, this and that. I can convince myself, yeah, instead of me going fucking crazy, this is what I'm doing, you know what I mean? But really, I'm just putting a cap over what the fuck I really want to do. I want to fucking break some shit. I want to kick walls and shit and punch walls, you know what I mean? And I would do that, you know what I mean? But I would find a place to do it, you know what I mean? One time, we did have extra drywall. I destroyed that in the basement, just letting out my shit. But again, that's something like, if you're not involved, a person looking outside in is gonna say that's erratic behavior. You need to go check yourself in. You know what I mean? But if you're not going through a situation where you have no choice but to keep going because you have to go feed bills, you have to feed your kid, you have to go pay bills, you have to, you know what I mean? There's no more sick days. You have to keep going and going. You used all your sick days because you let a person really get you emotionally distraught to where you're gonna be like, I'm going home. I'm calling in sick, or I'm not going into work, I'm calling in sick. Hey boss, I'm leaving out early. Give me that point, whatever the fuck.
Right.
You're down to your last fucking, you know what I mean? You're just being ran through shit.
That's insane. You just changed my perspective on something, and this sounds crazy. People are probably gonna hate me for saying this, but I see and I understand a little bit more now how, and I'm not comparing you and my abuser to each other, sure. But I'm understanding now that why he reacted the way that he did, breaking shit, being very physically abusive. And it's not to justify his actions, but there isn't an outlet, of course, for men to express themselves freely in a healthy way, or they just don't know how to, right? And I know he would say that to me often, but I don't know how I can help you. I'm also as much as I say men's mental health matters to me, because it does. It's not that I don't find it important. It's just that it's hard for me to be soft to people, because I didn't grow up in a household like that where we're gentle with each other about each other's feelings and able to talk about things. But also, when you do toxic and abusive behaviors, how do you expect me to be soft to you and love you and give you that space to open up about things? Because your immediate reaction should not be to be abusive and do things that can harm me, because that's just going to put fear in me, or sometimes more resentment. And you just changed my perspective on, I guess it just made me understand more why he acted the way that he did. And again, it's not a justification for the abuse, because there's never a justification for it. I just wish that I had more understanding and resources on how to help people in situations like that, because it isn't just men. But of course, men are typically perceived as the aggressor in situations like that. And other than telling them to get the help that they need, which is not easy to get therapy and get here in America, I should say, $50 a session is not fucking cheap.
No.
Especially if you're going every single week. That's $200 a month down the drain. And even with insurance, it's still that price.
It is.
So,
it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's hella expensive. And also to find a therapist is not the easiest thing in the world. And it took me years to find someone that I could work with long term.
Finding a therapist is literally, I don't even know. You have to find an actual therapist and not like a cheerleader or some shit. Someone that's going to enable your shit. Because I've had to check myself as far as who I was talking to as far as therapists goes. I've had I think 5, because I've kept switching, because it's just like, I need to feel like I'm doing better as a person. I need to feel like I'm processing shit and progressing as well. And if we're talking about the same shit over and over again, and you're not telling me what I need to hear, you're just trying to baby me and shit, I'm like, okay, this is an awkward session. I've had one where I'm like, are you like enabling my behavior? Are you telling me I've acted this way and it's okay because I had an emotional fucking, you know what I mean, reaction? And after the session, I just got down and we just, I've had a back and forth debate with myself before the session. And after the session, I still don't feel any better about it. You're just not helping me out. I've had to let go of therapists like that. And it sucks because they're still going to send you that fucking bill. That's just whack. So finding a therapist is really fucking difficult, man. Especially long term. I've had one, I think the longest one I've had was literally a year before it's getting expensive as shit now.
I had one for like 6 months. I didn't realize it was just for 6 months. I thought she was going to stay with me long term, but as soon as she was the initial therapist that I spoke to when I realized I really needed to get more serious about it. Because that's when I started to be more physically abusive, I'll admit that. I wasn't doing anything to harm him. Like I said, I never physically touched him or anything. But when he would piss me off and he's gone, I would start punching the walls and shit like that. That's when I was like, I need to start talking to the therapist and get serious about my anger management and get serious about controlling my emotions because, like I said, at this point, he stopped cheating. So that that was no longer clouding my judgment of just the relationship in general. And his physical abuse was kind of slowing down a little bit, but it was so bad to the point where he would always mess with me when I'm sleeping. And because I was so used to that, my reaction always became I'd immediately just start punching and kicking. If I felt like he was fucking with me while I'm sleeping, I would just start punching and kicking in the air. Even if he's not actually near me, it's just an instant reaction because I'm like, now I'm going into protective mode of myself. Yeah. I'm no longer going to sit there and just accept the shit. No, this is not healthy for me. So I started to see a therapist secretly. And she really, of course, I'm grateful that she helped me get out of that situation because she started to help me see I'm being gaslit. I'm not crazy for what's going on around me. I'm really seeing this for what it is. But I didn't realize that as soon as I left him, our sessions were ending. So then I had to find a new therapist and go through the whole process of that. And I probably switched a few therapists in between there before I actually found my current therapist, who is literally amazing. I know for me, I obviously have certain preferences as far as who my therapist is, just simply because I knew I needed a woman, and I knew that I needed a woman of color, or a black woman, if it was possible. It's because I knew that there were just some things that I didn't want to have to explain culturally to people.
Definitely.
And I was so lucky that I found who I found, and she's amazing. She's literally gotten me through some of the hardest times of my life, and you're finally in a really good place. So I've slowed down a lot on therapy because I've been able to manage my mental health a little bit more in the last few months. But I still check in with her at least once a month or so, just to make sure I want to be preventive of my manic episodes if I can. And
definitely everybody does.
Exactly.
People have them.
Exactly. And it took me a long time to realize this switch over. For so many years, I was just going through life, just cruising by, just living in this cloud of literally just not even living, just cruising through. And when you finally come out on the other side where you're actually able to manage your mental health for real and you're able to healthily just be yourself, it feels insane. I never thought I would get here because I never knew that it was that bad. And I'm so grateful that I've gotten to this point because I just be so unbothered by shit. I know everyone always says don't send the paragraph, don't crash out on someone, but I am
sending a voice memo.
I would do that sometimes, but I feel like I feel like it's healthy when you can actually express how you feel to someone without attacking them and just telling them honestly, this makes me feel this way, your actions make me feel this way, and I'm telling you these things because I give a fuck enough about you in this friendship or relationship, because I want you to realize that you could do better. You could be a better version of yourself if you just understood this. But also you can't take accountability for someone else who isn't going to take accountability for themselves.
Right.
I've also learned that's not me crashing out, because when I crash out, it goes worse. The way I used to be in the past, I was like, damn, I used to let them get me out of character so often. And I'd be going off on you, going crazy. Oh, well, go fuck that bitch then. Hope you're using protection, or just some dumb shit like that. I was so toxic. Now, I'm like, any guys that have dated me recently, if you're mad because I'm telling you how you're making me feel, and I'm telling you an adult, and that still makes you feel some type of way, then that's something personal, bro. Because honestly, I'm not even getting out of character. I'm not getting out of character. Because the moment I get out of character, you're going to know. because I'll be at your door.
Yeah.
Like I said last time,
Sure.
I'm pull up queen. So don't play. But I have not let anyone get me out of character like that in so long. Like, I just been so chill. And I'm like,
just a chill girl.
I'd be like, just a chill girl. I'm scared. What if one of these days I just end up crashing out? But I'm like, no. I trust myself enough that I've gotten to such a good place. Like, I'm cool on all that. Like, if you can get me to the point where I'm crashing the fuck out and I'm pulling up on you, then you're not going to be a part of my life.
Definitely.
Like, it's not me avoiding my issues. It's literally me knowing that this is going to be toxic behavior.
Right.
Because I've had people resurface in my life who have gotten me out of character, and I'm like, and they keep pressing my buttons. They keep doing the same thing. Like, they keep trying to get me to react.
Right.
And I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna just let you talk to yourself. Because here's the thing, I'm muting your conversation with me. I don't even have your number saved, first of all. Muted your conversation with me. My phone's on D&D all the time, so I'm definitely never seeing your text messages. And you can call me all you want, but it's never gonna come through.
Right.
I'm not gonna block you because I'm gonna let you keep thinking that you have access to me. But I'm never going to even read your message because I could give a fuck less. I'm like, I could be who I was a year ago and totally crash out and send all these text messages to your girlfriend, but you're not gonna be that messy. I'm not gonna be that person. And I'm like, y'all don't want me to get out of character, because when I get out of character, it goes bad for everyone.
That's growth.
It's cool. It's really growth. And I'm like, the people, when I find the love of my life, you're gonna get the best version of me, because I'm a chill girl now. I'm not blowing up on anyone. I'm not getting irrational about shit. And anytime someone tries to reel me into some toxic shit or some abusive shit, I'm gonna talk to you real nice. I'm gonna tell you how I feel, and I'm gonna ask you if you feel like you're adult enough to talk to me about how you're feeling right now and why you feel like you need to act in the way that you are. Let's say you choose not to tell me how you feel and be an adult about it. I'm so good on that. So over the struggle of that shit is dead to me. I'm going into my 30s. That is, the love of my life isn't gonna do that.
It's an exhausting thing.
It is, and I'm like, I can only imagine how it would feel if I had kids with these people. Because then I'd have to be linked to you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also, not that I feel like having kids is something that holds you back, but I know it doesn't give you a lot of space or time to work through yourself.
Right.
And be better.
Other lives. I care.
Exactly. And I see that a lot. And when I watch my sister, she's never going to get the space that she needs and deserves to recover from that stroke. Mm-hmm. I always look at her and I'm like, oh my God. I wish that they took mental health more seriously. Yes, she's here, she's physically alive, she's physically okay, but her mental health is not okay. Why have you not recommended her to talk to a therapist? Why have you not recommended that she speaks to a professional about this? Because she's literally traumatized from this, and I see it in her eyes. And it literally breaks my heart every fucking day to see that. And then I think about, bro, look at all the shit she has to balance. She had to learn to do almost everything over again. She still can't remember shit to this day. Short-term memory is gone. Mm. She'll literally repeat the same thing to me over and over. And they expect her to go out in the world and just work like normal and live like normal. She's not okay, bro. It's not always going to show every single time you see her. You would see her and you would think she's perfectly okay. But when you spend enough time with her, you notice the patterns and you're like, that shit literally used to break my heart to see that. And like, even we've been through shit. We don't get along sometimes and we fight and we argue, but like, I just hate that she just will never be given the space that she needs to be mentally okay. I can't imagine you going through what you got to go through mentally as a man, not having the space and the proper tools to express yourself, but then also still have to be a father and also still have to provide. And
it's a lot of shit. It's the whole fucking thing. It's a list, but every day is the fucking struggle. But every day is kind of like, if you wake up and you put yourself in a good ass mood and you fucking put your best foot forward, the next foot's gonna follow. Everything's gonna be all right. That's how I look at it, because I know if you ever been, I've been at a low point where I'm looking fucked up. I'm looking way strange as fuck. Not even normal. I didn't shave. My hair is all fucking crazy, and just going through it. But you still have to go to work, and being told, all right, well, go fuck that bitch then. You know, like, yo, I'm looking fucking crazy grizzly, a fucking mental health patient right now, and being told that, like, your lowest is just like, what the fuck? This lady does not have no gives, no fucks, nothing, and it's just like, all right, for sure. You know what I mean? There's no way to fucking respond to that, because when I was at that lowest point and being told that, I was so mind fucked because it's just like, all right, I can't bounce back from that. I'm going deeper in my negative thoughts, in my depression, in my anxiety, and being told that because you really have to go to work, you really picked up a shift, you really fucking have to stay longer, and being told and convinced that you're actually doing something else that you're not at your lowest point. You know what I mean? No fucking nothing, no new shoes. You just grinding it out, and being told that shit is just fucking. I don't know. It's a mind fuck for me. And I know I had to fucking pull myself out. This was my first relationship and shit. Pull myself out, and I had to go through these motions and shit. I had to actually fucking not respond to texts, not respond to people, not go out. I had to go through these emotions and shit. Be depressed at home, be on my couch, be on the bed. Sometimes I'd have too much laundry on the bed. I'm just gonna sleep on the couch. I was fucking at a low point before. But as a guy, as a man, you have to go through that. It sucks, but it's fucking reality. You got to go through these emotions to get back out and know how to navigate. In the future, if you ever go through a situation like that, like, all right, you're being at your lowest point, this and that, are you really going to let some words really fuck you up? You know what I mean? Because I've been through a low point more than once, and being told that more than once is fucking wild. You know what I mean? You would think your significant other or whatever would try and like, encourage you or dust you off, maybe bring you back up. You know what I mean? If you're at a low point, but I don't know. If there's no respect and communication, like I was saying before, it's going to be hard. And it's really difficult to even bring that up if one person's at their lowest point. They're shutting down, you know what I mean? They're shutting down. They're not open. They're not going to try and talk to you and communicate with you. They're going to just go to work, do what needs to be done because like, you're a man and you have to be strong and you got to show these kids or whatever.
Right.
Show your girl, hey, you know what I mean? I'm not going to fucking cry and be distraught. I'm going to go to work and do what I got to do. So going through that experience, like that charged a lot of domestic violent arguments and shit to where it's going from, hey, you're not home at this time, you're doing something else, to you're not making it easy for me to come home. I'm staying out more, to, oh, we're trying to convince each other.
And when you say that, do you feel like you ever said it in a way where she could take it personally and be like, because like, I had those conversations, obviously, or those arguments.
Oh, I definitely have.
He's always like, well, why do you think I'm always fucking out? Because I don't want to fucking be home with you. You literally suck the life out of me. Rather than communicating and telling me, like, hey, this doesn't, like, I'm not happy here. Like, I don't want to be home because...
Yeah, I've done that. I've done some irresponsible, said some dumbass shit like that too. But that's my first situation. We're not really lucky to always be in relationships where your significant other experienced that in the past and they know how to navigate now. So my first experience, I've done that. Fuck it. But then my second, third, whatever the fuck, smaller situations, arguments, debates, I would try and be like that, try and communicate like that. And if they're so emotionally charged, I'm getting bashed. You know, I'm just getting shitted on, fucking darts thrown at me and shit. They're not gonna hear it. They're not gonna want to hear it. I've been in situations where literally trying to be responsible and communicate properly and talk and not talk out of line and call anybody out by name and shit, and that's being taken as I'm being a smart ass, I'm being sarcastic the way I'm talking. I'm not engaging in how you're feeling, but I'm engaging in the conversation. I'm engaging in the subject. I'm not engaging in how you're feeling. I don't want to pull or tug on your emotional fucking shit to try and get a rise out of you. I've had those experiences too as well. Both of them suck.
I hear this often, and then I was listening